This is Pilleater, and today I'd like to talk about stories versus games, the difference explained for you stupid soy boys. Now, what are games? Well, according to Louis Pulsifer, a game designer, he said, to paraphrase, games are either about people or math. Stories are a subset of people. Games fall under these two categories. Note that games are about people or math, and stories make up people, right? You don't tell stories to yourself, you need a person to tell a story to. Without people, you cannot tell stories. Once a story is read, it is done. There's not much replay value to a story. You tell it, you experience it, that's it. You know, you watch Venom, you go to the movie theater, hell, it's a story, it's a movie, right? Role-playing games and game design is the game of designing games and players playtesting them. You know, to take Pulsifer's note on game design, the game of designing games and players playtesting them. I don't see any stories in there, right? So stories happen as a byproduct of the game, not the game itself, right? You could be playing an awesome game of chess, and you do certain moves, and then you retell the game to someone else, and it's like a story itself. Now, the game, whether it has a mechanic of telling a story or is a storytelling game, does not constitute the entire genre or the creation of designing a game. You know, games are not stories. Stories are a byproduct of the game. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that I recently read a book, Game Mastery by Dominic Wash. There's a umlaut over the A. Is a 2010 English translation of a self-published German book. This is him in the picture, and supposedly he's a PhD in computer science or programming. I don't know. Let that picture sink in for a bit and tell me how much soy he has in his body. His entire argument is based upon the fun cliche that everyone wants to have fun, right? Everybody. This is something Gary Gygax said in Dungeons & Dragons first edition, where to make sense of all these crazy rules, you just want to have fun, right? Well, he assumes that, and he even wrote this. He said to run things smoothly, everyone has an agenda to force everyone to have fun. This is a pre-social justice warrior notion. And what he's trying to do is he's saying that instead of playing the game for yourself, you should actually have this agenda in your head and think, is my player having fun? Is this stranger across the table having fun? Or if you have friends, why does it matter? If you're playing with your friends, you know who he is. But if it's a stranger, you want to force an agenda onto people. You know, he wrote this book not for RPGs, but storytelling, like board games such as Dixit, Once Upon a Time, or Story Cubes. These games are not role-playing games. They're board games, card games, based upon telling stories. And he assumes that role-playing games or games of designing games is somehow telling stories. And that's weird because it shows you that it's more this kind of, again, pre-SJW notation about telling each other stories, right? Which is, it's very strange than actually playing a game of chess. And his book is full with this whole SJW paradigm that will rule the next 10 years or 8 years of this paradigm. So how did this story myth happen? Well, it happened with this guy named Jonathan Tweet. In 2000, he took over the third edition of Dungeons & Dragons, and he said he didn't take it over, and Monty Cook and Skip Williams were just happening to design a game, and he jumped on. Well, not really. He's this Marxist atheist who has, you know, his game Over the Edge is kind of this revenge nerd fantasy thing, and he only talks in terms of stories, you know. Again, he belongs to this group of anti-social nerds caring more about being social than gaming, right? Not about the chess pieces you move, more about being social, right? And talking about your feelings, right? These are basically the SJWs in creation. I think the story myth has happened because it's an instant gratification of this passive generation into swiping left, meaning that the millennials are so hooked on this technological, computer, hive mind, video game takeover, the traditional physical meat world, to use William Gibson terms. And there's something really obnoxious when nerds can't talk to another and they have to play a game in order to discuss. If it's even called a game, why do they have to tell stories, right? And this is ruining the entire thing about game design. Now, there is the importance of the second-person narrative. And there has been this a new postmodern literature novel where the narrative is about you, not I, which is the first, or they, the third, right? A lot of new books and literature and novels that people enjoy now is about you having the star in it. So game books and video games popularized this format of the second-person narrative, Jorge Luis Borges saw it as the future of creating writing as well in his book, The Passage of Moving Forks and whatnot. This usually includes in these books, turning pages out of choices or random outcomes with if-X mechanics. That if you have the red key, you enter the red door, therefore go to page 16. And you have to think about whether that is a game or not. This is good, but it has a bad consequence for ludology or game studies, Wilhelm Flusser, in his book Does Writing Have a Future, contemplated that, the third and first person's going out of style, and Flusser kind of predicted that the second person narrative would happen. But again, this new innovative postmodern fiction doesn't mean that this is going to means games, right? Ludology, game studies, is different from the new second person narrative. So what will happen if stories become the paradigm of gaming? Well, first we will confuse ludology, game studies, with the art of writing and telling stories. Ask yourself, is Ray Bradbury a game designer? No, he likes telling stories. That's what he does, right? RPGs will become story cubes with a thematic excuse, right? You're not rolling a d20 to hit a target number. You're just writing little objects and making up shit on the spot. You're having a schizophrenic ramble, right? A brain freeze creativity thing. The game plays you, not you playing the game. Like you have a deck of cards, well, you draw 7 cards, and the cards tell you to win this way, you play them. You never play the cards itself, right? JRPGs will continue to create second reality, virtual reality, and will confuse life with Ludwig Wittgenstein's game reality, meaning life is a game, right? Especially the Japanese and Asians think about them. They don't have that Western Faustian soul to them. The Japanese are kind of soulless with that, and that's why they're more prone, and that's why I mentioned JRPGs, right? Play will be further confused as a set of challenges. Well, a set of challenges, that's a game, right? Play is play. Dogs chase their tails. People do jumping jacks and things like that. That's more of playing, and playing can make a game, but that doesn't mean it's a game, right? It's the lowest common denominator. It's forced egalitarianism. It's consumer culture. This is a lack of intellectualism, and it's the attraction of weak people who are not gamers, right? SJWs will come in and enforce that if StarCraft 2 is too hard, I only care about the story, right? That's cat lady logic there. And so I tell these people, collaborative script writing won't last, right? If games are collaborative script writing, like you're a bunch of nerds and you can't talk and you just roll story cubes all the time, then why should I do it in a group when I could do it myself? Right? I can write my own book. I don't need you or a stranger to write it, so my friends to do it. We might as well do our own book. Like, I wrote a book with Stark and some friends and wrote The Journey of Vapor Island. I didn't have to play a game to do that. Who's transcribing this said session? Even if you were to do that and based upon collaborative script writing, who has the voice recorder? Is anybody going to remember the story, or is it just this nerdy thing everybody will remember? Like, will this story that has been created be used for something in the future, like art, to show other people? A campaign, right? Or will it be used as a big indoor joke for some nerds? You just only tell it, and that's the whole antisocial part, right? Nerds who can't properly socialize, so they have to play a Wittgenstein game because they are mentally retarded. You're mentally retarded because you just can't talk about what's shooting the breeze. You gotta roll dice to do it. You gotta tell a story to do it. What is even the purpose of dice and written stats then, especially in RPGs, or in board games using pawns and whatever? If the story is being told only with said board media, what makes it superior to intellects having a meditation and writing their own thoughts? That's what people have been doing for ages, right? So why can't I tell you about the time I dated 2 bi-Asian girls? I watched Star vs. the Forces of Evil and smoked weed with one. I fucked them both and dumped them without playing a so-called game attached to it, right? It's not like Rouge v. Game. I didn't play a game to get that. That was my own doing. There's no game attached to it. Stories don't last. I just told you a story right there. They are told, they are done, they are remembered if they are good. You can't just play them, right? You certainly could play fiction or whatnot, or play a thematic, but it just doesn't work. It's an entire cat lady generation trying to turn games into Dixit or share my lady feelings with me, you know, like Lifetime soap operas. So maybe the future would look something like this. This is an example for non-games. If you remember that episode of Futurama where they're in the movie theaters and people have the choice by the gold robot to violent laser gun battle or tedious paperwork, and the button 1 doesn't work and somehow everyone chooses tedious paperwork. That democracy? Is that supposedly good? Everyone makes a democratic choice and you're telling a story? It seems like, again, you're passively watching it. You're not engaged with it. Another thing the media tries to cover up is Depression Quest by Zoe Quinn, which was the cataclysm for Gamergate, right? It's another choose-your-own-adventure book, but yet this is considered literature by the New York Times, and this is the second-person narrative going in, right? And people are calling it a game. It's not a game. It's a second-person narrative. And then we have Sam Pink's Person, and why I mention that is because the text is kind of more about himself in the first, or that you as the reader are getting attached to his weird writing. The same with House of Leaves, where it's just fontism all over the place. It's just text. You may be playing with the text. You may be trying to find where all this text is, but it's not a game in itself. It could be the game the Wittgenstein sense, but it's not a game. It's you passively engaging with it. And it's the second person narrative, and this is totally not to be confused with game design. None of these things are referenced as game, but it shows you that we have become more important than the first and third in the narrative. So we have to ask, well, are games puzzles? No, Raphael Coster is wrong, especially in his book Theory of Fun. He argues games are puzzles. You know, once a puzzle is solved, like a story is read, there's no replay value or meaning behind playing it again, right? Euro games are multiplayer solitaires and are puzzles, right? If you play a Euro game, this math game, you're not playing with other people. You're doing your own puzzle and trying to figure out and wave your dick to say you did the puzzle better. So some people are puzzle solvers, but see games as Rubik's Cubes. This is bad, and it's bad to assume all gamers are Rubik's Cube solvers. I hell wouldn't want to play Doom if it's a giant Rubik's Cube. I mean, Mike Selinker, the Jewish anti-racist SJW, he even knows the difference. He has a panel titled "The Difference Between a Game and a Puzzle." Right? There's a difference here, and when people think games are puzzles, well, that's wrong as too. It's assuming games are puzzles will justify autistic people who act like machines. Machines are not humans. They have no souls. They will just solve programs. You know, the second-person narrative writers know this too. The cat ladies obsessed with narratives like this because they hate it when people solve their story. Right? Yeah, for the puzzle solvers, patterns are discarded, they're relearned and solved over and over again like taking a drug. Non-puzzles, as are games, are not like this because there is no ultimate answer or right way of doing things, right? That's what games are about. It's like people assume that they're puzzles and you solve it, that's that. And people who advocate the stories don't realize people are going to accuse them as puzzlers, as solving a Rubik's Cube, and that's just not true. Baseball and certainly chess is just not a puzzle. I mean, you could say that a computer solved chess as a puzzle, but there's just too many options out there. First, you got to know the difference between writers and game designers, right? Both can create fun and entertainment to its customers. I'm sorry, I'm using the disgusting use of the word here because they think in that capitalist term of merchant to consumer. But does that qualify the artist as one of the same, right? Does that qualify the artist as a merchant exploiter? And I'm Picasso. I'm making this goofy ass art just for fun and entertainment. No. You know, drinking games. The only fun in drinking games is drinking beer, not the game itself, right? You just want to drink beer. You don't care about the points in beer pong, right? Rush's V's game, right? Picking up chicks. The only fun is having sex with a new girl. You don't care about a certain Xbox achievement you've done. No, you just want to have sex with a girl, and you'll do that by any means necessary. The game is completely obligatory. Beer or girls, choose it, right? Intellects are not passive with art. You know, like the addicts smoking pot who are passive and go, whoa, man, right? Intellects can learn and connect things. A basketball player like LeBron James is too busy shooting hoops and winning, right? call LeBron James intellect, but when you play a game and you're a gamer and you're doing this for competition, you know, you don't want to have fun. It's not fun and entertainment, it's work. You may be playing a game, but again, consider that. That's what intellects don't find everything fun. You know, is Russian roulette fun? Someone dies, you spin a gun, someone died, unless you're a sadist and you find it fun, but it's not fun. Why should all games be about fun? Is playing chess the World Series fun? It sounds daunting to me and like work, right? Different reactions get from different games, right? It's not just about fun. People do it for other reasons. And if you're a storyteller, you're a writer, right? You're not in it for fun. You know, Raphael Koster makes excuses like, all puzzles are learning, which is a nice way of saying, I'm a teacher, not a game designer. Anyone can teach. And Koster even haven't made a game design. He's just all talk. He's just some fraudulent masters of creating rank from Alabama, autistic douchebag. So second, the game design discipline is similar to women's studies. And when I say that, you know, you have to understand that there are 3 important books to game design. Game Design by Louis Pulsifer, Characteristics of Games by Richard Garfield, and Rules of Play by Eric Zimmerman and Cat Lady. You know, these books were made by academics who decided to write books about game design because it is so niche and not an actual application in life or in art. Pulsifer is a historian, military history. Garfield, a doctorate in math. Eric Zimmerman, probably computer science. These are irrelevant with what they were doing, right? They're just, I play games, therefore I want to make games, right? It's kind of decadent. I heard Eric Zimmerman listen to punk rock music while he wrote Rules of Play. So does that tell you anything about games design right there? And meanwhile, Raphael Koster cries out that one day games will be like Shakespeare. Yeah, and Toby Fox made the ultimate Asian Aryan game, Undertale. Record that in history. Everyone's jealous about Toby Fox and his Eurasian lifestyle. Everybody wants to be him, and that's somehow Shakespeare? It's popular consumerism democracy, right? So game design is not practical, but an esoteric niche thing that no one really understands. That's why it's easy to assume if people like stories, they must like them while playing a game. No English dictionary definitions are used, right? You tell a story, a game must be played. It doesn't really refer to its game design, you know, these definitions, because no one really understands it. And that's another thing you have to understand. If it's just play, then games have become compatible with adult children. You know, creating the soy boy market. And this is why I write this. It's for you dumbass fucking soy boys out there surfing YouTube. So if you were a game designer, you would be something of an engineer of play, really. You know, James Ernst, game designer, who had said that game designing is nothing but entertainment. Then why can't I be a stripper then? You know, why can't I be a male stripper? Think of and disregard this whole entertainment bullshit, because you can entertain anyone you want by telling jokes, being a stand-up comedy. You don't have to be a game designer. It's all just a poor understanding of it. Just think of game design as an art that proposes challenges, math, and socializing people together with a series of interesting choices. It doesn't mean the agenda should be to have fun, entertain, and be a fat ass while you eat potato chips while you're playing stupid fucking Euro games. You know, some people think sports and chess is the only thing in life, right? Ask Bobby Fischer. It's not fun. You're not eating potato chips while you're doing this. They see it's more. Game is much more of life and a reflection of that. Games are not just video games, nor does being a game designer mean you are a video game designer programmer. That's just the newest paradigm of games, is video games. Because most games in the past we know are physical, like chess and any board game. You know, mind games that are video game, 20 questions, patty cake, I Spy, that takes place in a mine, you know, they take place in the mind and they're illusion without components. There's no physical components. You might have a controller hooked up to a console and it plays things, but again, it's all in the mind. And if we do this, we will make these definitions that's about stories or Wittgenstein or something like that. So game creation and design game creation and design came from cultures which over tradition created variations of forms of play that we have been doing. Kind of like Michel Foucault's history of sexuality. You know, we've reached a new age where a single person can make a game. You know, previously in the history of sexuality, we didn't know how sex formed. It just happened, right? That's the same with games. Through cultures and the creation of variants, we've made those games. It's kind of like how people prefer draft play now in Magic the Gathering because everyone solved the issue, the puzzle of net decking and things like that. And that's things why games like Keyforge try to to stop that, like a variant upon a game and a variant upon a game. So, and now anybody can make their own game, and that's why the whole game designer art is being thought of now. And so I'm just putting this out there, and I want you to hopefully digest this all, because just remember, stories are not games. If you think so, you are a twat. Okay, thanks for listening. www.pilleater.com